Welcome, jesters. All right, let's talk about something. I just wrote this as a note. I actually have no notes or anything like that, so we'll see how far we get thinking through something. And the question is, I saw this after the idea was floated of United Airlines and American Airlines merging. So I thought the question is, why are corporations even allowed to merge? I know. I know how this sounds. From an ardent capitalist, free marketist like me, why am I questioning this? But I'm questioning it from another position that I've had. I'm pretty sure I made a video about it. And that is, I genuinely believe that all things, a couple of exceptions, should be owned by real people. I think we really should have an ownership society, meaning real people own everything. And if I did make a video about this, it was about people owning real estate. Like, I believe that only real persons should own real estate, no corporations. Even commercial land, residential land, commercial land, or whatever. This would require just minor modifications to the legal framework, like, a corporate liability-free lease or something like that. But technically, yes, the CEO of the company would own the land. Every house is owned by a person. And this was to, I don't want to say deal with, but I just think it's an option to what we have now with private equity buying up all the homes, which is, it's funny on that. People argue about how big a problem it is. No one has been complaining about it a lot recently, so maybe it wasn't as big as a problem that people think it was, but I still think it's a problem because I still actually do believe, regardless of whether or not private equity is a good thing, it's bad for corporations, by the way. I don't think, or I do think, that only real persons should own property. So just extend that to corporations, right? Why should a corporation be able to buy another corporation? Why should a corporation own another corporation, right? A corporation should just be a single entity, a group of people coming together, owned by real people, either owned by a single person, a single proprietor, family ownership, no matter how big it is, or through some sort of share program. But regardless, the corporation is owned itself by real people. And that's it. There's no other steps, right? A corporation can't own another corporation, and consequently, a corporation can't really buy another corporation, right? The only method for, all these big mergers, and, my own little personal jury is still out on whether or not they're good. I don't know. I'm really suspect, and not for any anti-capitalist notion or anything like that. It really is just about ownership. So instead of these corporations being able to merge, okay, they can, but it really would be buying the assets. Like if United Airlines wants to buy JetBlue, which everyone seems to think is the ultimate end game, they can't just buy the corporation. They can't do one of these accounting tricks to merge the corporations, with stock swaps and all this kind of stuff. No, they would literally have to buy the airplanes and buy the gates and buy the assets and buy this and then merge it into United Airlines, right? And they have to come up with the cash or finance it or something to do this. They can't just wave a magic wand and, like two cells, merge together into one giant blob. And, maybe it's my thinking that it's just too easy, for them to do this. And there's been way too many instances of, I know now I'm going to sound like one of them, of they use this to like just kind of escape other rules or get out of certain financing conditions or whatever. Or, with things like leverage buyouts, they load up the company with debt or anything like that. So that's just a way to avoid all this unseemly, activity. And I will describe it as that. I think people still should be still should be allowed to trade, all this kind of, in any way that is mutually agreeable to both parties. And, corporations are included in that. But just from an ownership perspective, right? If real people have to own everything, then everything has to be bought and sold. It would also probably eliminate a lot of the ability for the politicians to step in and regulate this kind of stuff. It would also kind of eliminate the need for all this regulatory oversight, because if it's harder, if United Airlines actually has to come up with the cash, right, or the financing, the direct financing to buy, JetBlue, and they can't just like do it all on paper, then there's probably going to be a lot less of it, and let's see, it might even be riskier for them, and yeah. Anyway, but that's what I'm saying. Why are they allowed to merge? Not that they should be prevented, but if the corporation is actually owned by people, then they have to buy it from the other people. They have to buy the stuff from the other people, and then it just becomes a regular, normal commercial transaction, right? I don't know. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, I think everything, I genuinely think that everything should be owned only by people. Yeah. And as for the merger, I think it's a terrible idea. I really don't want to see United Airlines and American Airlines merge. I've been an American Airlines customer for decades now. I have my lifetime status, and it still works very well for me. I have not flown United since, well, it's been a couple of years, and it was only because one of Americans' Airbus broke down, and because of my status, they bumped me over to a United flight home. I was coming home from my cruise, and it was perfectly fine. I understand, why certain people might choose them, but yeah, no. And I would not want to see JetBlue go away either. And in that respect, I think if they want to merge, if that's their only path to success or whatever, I think it's really time we start asking. And I wish they would float this idea, get out there and just call out these politicians and ask the question, what is the government doing to prevent other airlines from getting started? And this has to do with competition. Like, what is the government doing to prevent other people from bringing meaningful competition to the aviation industry? Because, like so many things, yes, it is the government's fault. It is the politicians' fault why our airfares are so high. I'm right.